We're joined by Robert Mckinley. He's the founder and chairman of CardWeb.com. His firm provides research and services to the card payment industry and also to consumers. So thanks very much for speaking with us, Robert. Appreciate it. So
Thank you.
Coming from your perspective and someone who obviously talks a lot to the card payment industry, what are you hearing in terms of early reaction to increased regulation of the industry?
Well, I think a lot of times the industry, in the grand sense of things, really understands that this industry needs to be overhauled and that some of these practices were just bad business. And of course, we've come through a time now where we've just patched up the financial system with a Band-Aid. It's time to fix the system and to get banks back to the business of banking and not, milking the wallets of consumers.
Do you think, though, there's going to be any kicking and screaming along the way?
Well, certainly under the proposal today with merging all this hodgepodge of regulatory agencies, certainly there's going to be a big backlash within the industry and among these agencies themselves. But certainly it's going to be good it's going to create efficiency for the industry overall in the long term. Should help us to avoid this great credit crunch and mortgage meltdown that we went through. And more importantly, it creates, I think, fairness for the consumer.
Robert, in his press conference today, Senator Dodd said that the American bank regulating system may have led to lax oversight by encouraging what he called a race to the bottom by agencies to win oversight of banks and thrifts. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes, I would. Yes, certainly.
Tell us why.
Well, it's the race to the bottom with the smaller banks. Actually, let me think about that a little bit more.
That's quite all right, sir. The Dodd plan, as we mentioned, it could have some problems trying to reconcile itself with the version in the House. Do you think that this is going to be a tough political slog? Are they going to get this done?
Well, it's going to be very tough, certainly in the Senate, for Dodd to get this through. But to reconcile the two, yes, it's going to be quite a job. And to get it done by the end of the year is going to be quite a challenge. But at the same time, I think overall, the industry, the Congress itself is going to do something in this area of bank reform because it's really being demanded.
Robert, I want to turn specifically to overdraft programs because that's something obviously that you have a lot of knowledge of. A lot of cards, debit cards, that is, if you have an overdraft program, if you draw over the amount, you can be hit with a fee. Congress is trying to limit those fees, saying that only it can happen a certain number of times per year, for example. How much does the industry stand to lose financially if these problems are cut back or eliminated?
Well, there's already been some indication, certainly, that there's anywhere between $30 to $40 billion worth of revenue tied up in these fees. And I believe Wells Fargo put out some information yesterday that indicated next year they would stand to lose about $300 million in revenue from this. So it is a substantial change that will affect the industry. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to come back to where we're going to have a service charge, a monthly service charge on these checking accounts to recoup and offset the pullback on overdraft fees, which was really out of control anyway.
Well, why not get rid of overdraft programs entirely? I mean, you have what you have in your checking account, and if you try and take out too much and it's not there, why does the bank even let you do it?
Well, 36 years ago when I was married, actually on this day, there was individuals actually went to jail for writing a $5 check that went over their credit limit in their accounts. And in fact, many newspapers would publish your name. Now, today, of course, it's become a profit stream for banks, and charging $37 to $40 to make a $20 overdraft. They say it's for convenience, but really the way that the system operates, it's very much stacked against the consumer, and it especially impacts the pay-to-paycheck young struggling families in the United States. It may be a convenience to others, but it can be a real disaster for those families.
We're hearing from some small banks as well that the overdraft proposals as they stand put them at a disadvantage. Do you think that's true?
Not really sure about that. It certainly, in most cases, these smaller institutions have programs that are a little better streamlined and more adapted to the customer, and also the fees are lower, obviously, and I think there's more flexibility there. But yes, they certainly could be impacted by this. But again, it goes back to the same thing, getting back to the fundamentals of banking, charging for the basic banking service rather than creating these things like free checking and free debit, which really does not exist.
Robert Mckinley, founder and CEO of CardWeb.com, thanks a lot for joining us, and happy anniversary.